In this section, we'll go over soaking seeds. The kit came with 3 seeds, which do better if you soak them. None of them have to be soaked, but you will get better germination rates and more consistent rates from one tray to the next if you pre-soak certain seeds. Some people do soak almost all their seeds. I definitely do not recommend that. Most seeds do not need to be soaked, and you're really not gaining anything by doing that. What I'm going to start with is one of the bags that came in the kit of the sunflower. And this is 200 grams of sunflower, which is a pretty good amount. It's what they determined is the perfect amount to put in the kit per tray. I'd have to look on my chart to see what I normally recommend, but 200 grams is pretty good. So put that right in the bowl. Here I've got 4 ounces of buckwheat, and I'm just going to soak it right in this tray. And here I've got 8 ounces of dun pea. Now, I normally would do a lot more than that. I would normally do pretty close to almost a pound per tray. Although, dun pea is actually a microgreen that I have not grown before. I've grown all different kinds of peas, pea tendrils, speckled pea, Thomas Laxton, different brands. But I haven't actually done dun pea before, but judging by the size of them, I would probably do the same amount as I would do for my other pea mounts. But for the sake of this course, and so that you can get 2 grows out of the 1 pound bag, I split it in half, and we're going to go with 8 ounces, which will still be a pretty good grow. So I'm going to go add water to each of these. Now for the sunflower, what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak this overnight. It'll be about 24 hours. It'll be about this time tomorrow that I actually plant them. But I'm going to soak them overnight, and in the morning I will rinse them and soak them again for the day. And I'll be sure to show you that. The buckwheat, I'm going to soak that the same amount of time. But the dung pea is going to be just about 3 hours of soak. So I'm going to come back in about 3 hours or so. It'll be close to 8 o'clock at night, and I'll plant the dun pea tonight. But for the buckwheat and the sunflower, I'll wait till tomorrow afternoon to plant those. Now for the dun pea, this container is kind of small for what I'm doing, but I figured it would kind of work. These should soak up to be pretty much full in that container. So I filled the water right to the top because it's going to absorb most of that water. The sunflower, I've got plenty of water in here, and I've got more than enough for the buckwheat as well. Those two won't really soak up hardly any water at all. So I'll come back in 3 hours, and we'll plant the dun pea. So the peas have soaked for about 3 hours, almost exactly. I've already drained the water out of them. You can see they did just about fill the container. And I have some soil already spread out in this tray. There's about close to about a ½ inch of soil in here. I'm going to evenly spread the peas over the soil. These could have been soaked longer, they would have been fine. I like doing a short soak on peas. One main reason for that is that if you over soak your peas, they'll rot and cause mold problems. And some peas are more susceptible to that than others. Like I said before, I'm not sure about dun pea, but I don't want to take any chances of having them mess up. So again, that's a lot lighter than what I would normally plant. I plant normally about twice that much, but I wanted you to have the opportunity to play around with these twice to see. You could try like the hydroponic method, or we'll see. We'll try something else. It's always a good idea to start out with a really nice, even light spread on any microgreen seed. As you plant, you can always increase your seed density over time to find out kind of what the most amount you want to plant at one time is, because you will hit a wall where it's just not working out because it's too dense and it's really holding in moisture, or the plants aren't able to really thrive. I would much rather have a loosely planted tray than one that's dense and has problems. So now I'm going to cover up the peas, with about 1/4 inch of soil. Just enough really to kind of cover them up. Doesn't have to be perfect, just want a little bit of soil on each pea. Thinly spread that out, nice and even. Now I'm going to go water it in fairly heavily. I didn't water the bottom layer yet. You can see after watering it that I've washed off some of the soil on the peas, and so you can see some of them kind of poking through. Don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. You don't really even have to have that top coat of soil. I just think peas do a lot better when you have that. When I plant the buckwheat and the sunflower tomorrow, I will be stacking those on top of the peas with the sunflower at the bottom. It's not real important, but I like the most weight on the sunflower. But for tonight, because I'm not planting those yet, I'm just going to put this tray just over these with no weight or anything. They're not going to do anything really between now and tomorrow. It's been about 15 hours that we've been soaking the sunflower, and I just wanted to show you what the water looks like that's going to come out of this. I'm not bothering to set up the camera for this. I'm not going to show you the whole process, but see how it's kind of brown? That's all the oils and such coming off the sunflower. So I'm going to drain that out, and then I will rinse it and soak them again for the rest of the day. It's been right around 24 hours since we soaked our seeds. So we've got our buckwheat here, which about 10 hours ago I actually drained, but I left it in the container where they're still really damp. And the sunflower, which I just drained, I rinsed again about 2 hours ago, and then drained out all the water. So it's been about 24 hours that these were soaking, and these were soaking for more like 12 hours or so before I drained them and left them sitting in the container. Underneath this tray here, I've got the peas, the dun pea that we planted last night. And I'm going to go ahead and just put the buckwheat right on top of that. Put some soil here from the kit. Now I'm into the second bag of soil from the kit. Again, I'm going to want right around 3/4 of an inch, a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch of soil in here. So I got the soil all spread out nice and even. Now I'm just going to go water this tray in really heavily. Soil is nice and saturated. I am just going to take the buckwheat seed that's been soaking and evenly spread that over the surface. I'm just going to spread them out a little bit more evenly. Okay, that's the buckwheat. It's planted. We're going to do basically the same exact thing for the sunflower. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but with the sunflower, a lot of people will actually soak it until they have like a 1/8-inch tail coming out of the seed where it's already sprouted. I'm not doing that. I would basically, from here on, I would leave them drained, but still in a container. And by tomorrow, they would all have a seed, or they'd all have a little root coming out of them. But it's really not necessary, and I'm not going to take that step today. Off to put some water in. Now I'm just going to spread my seed. Now, it is okay to have the seeds stacked up on top of each other a little bit, but I prefer to have a nice even single layer of the sunflower seed. It just helps prevent having a bunch of seed that just doesn't get a chance to root, because if it's sitting on top of other seeds, then it's really hard for the root to make its way to the soil, and that seed will actually, or that sprout will actually just get picked up with the other sprouts and never have a chance to actually root in. And this looks like just about the perfect amount of seed. Now I'm going to take my tray of dun pea and my buckwheat and put those right on top of the sunflower. Now I've got another tray just to weight down the buckwheat. I've got my 4 packets left of sunflower I'm going to use as a weight. And I'll use the remainder of the soil in this bag. And I'll just set that in the tray as a weight. It's common to use like a concrete paver to weight down trays. I don't ever do that, because what I normally would do is I plant a tray as a top tray that doesn't need to be stacked. Something like arugula, amaranth, the basic salad mix, which we didn't stack when we grew it last time, but I prefer to stack it, but it doesn't have to be. That's why that was the cap tray. So every time I plant, I have a cap tray that just doesn't need to be stacked, and that's my weight. So because of that, I don't use pavers, but today I'm not gonna plant a cap tray today. So we're just gonna use whatever we have to just weight it down a little bit. Doesn't have to be like an exact weight amount or anything. You just want to keep those buckwheat seeds in nice contact with the soil and give them a little bit of resistance to be able to pop right up, so that they have to root down into the soil, and then they'll start picking this tray up. We'll leave these stacked for about 3 days or so, and we'll be looking at them every day in between, or every couple days, just to see how they're doing, if they're getting ready to be unstacked. Our trays have been stacked for 4 days now, and let's see what's going on. This is the buckwheat. Doing well. Lots of roots, lots of root hairs. The dun pea. The dun pea could probably be unstacked right now, but I'm going to leave it in here for another day. And the sunflower. Those could use at least another day, maybe 2 days. So I just unstacked the buckwheat and the dun peas. The dun peas have been growing for 5 days, and the buckwheat was planted the following day, so that's actually been growing for 4 days, been stacked up. And I've got the sunflower under here. I'm going to give those another day of being stacked. Don't worry about a little bit of dirt that gets brought up with the peas, because we're going to top water this, so when you water it, you'll wash all that dirt off right back into the soil below. The buckwheat and the dun pea have been unstacked for 2 days now. You can see they're doing all right. Buckwheat's coming up pretty quick. And you can see it is time to unstack the sunflower as well. And time to water everything. Now would be a good time to show you the benefit of the lights that came in the kit. This is a single light fixture. This is not what you got in the kit. I had to use this because I only have one set of the lights that you got in that kit, and I had other trays under it. But you can see the way everything is kind of leaning in towards the light. You don't get that on the 2-light kit because the lights are more evenly spread out. So I'm going to take that tray of dun pea off the sunflower, and I'm going to water it in really heavily, and I'll show you that in just a second. So you can see the dun pea is, I waited maybe a little bit long to water them, but they're going to get plenty of water now. Now remember I said not to worry about some of the soil that came up a little bit? That's because we're going to wash that all right down right now. And these will be getting watered from above every time I water them. So that will help to pull the soil down each time and give them a nice wash. Now I'm going to water all 3 trays just like that. Before I water the sunflower, there was something that I thought would be a good time to show you right now. So I got this little clump here that got moldy. What you can do is just grab that and toss it away. I had another little clump that just got picked up right here. Just pick that off. That's basically it. The rest of them are pretty good. Another thing you can do is treat them with 3% hydrogen peroxide, or maybe even a little bit less than 3% of food grade peroxide. But I'm just going to go and water these now. Because they were stacked up until today, they don't need as much water as the peas. Here they are underneath the active grow lights. And so now they will grow much straighter. You can see the buckwheat was really kind of leaning in at each end. And I just watered it too, which knocked it down a little bit. But these will be standing right back up straight tomorrow, which is where we will pick this video back up. It's been 7 days since we planted these. Here's the dun pea, the sunflower that we uncovered yesterday, and the buckwheat, which is just about done, really. Gonna let that grow a little bit longer though. You can see there's not a whole lot of seed hulls stuck to the buckwheat. That's from soaking it. Quite a few seed hulls on the sunflower. But what I do to get rid of those is I basically just rub my hand over them every now and then. Now I'll knock a bunch of them off. I'll also mist them from the top. These are still good and wet, so I don't really need to water them. But getting the seed hulls nice and wet helps them shed the seed hull. Today will be harvest day. You can see that the buckwheat is huge. Sunflowers look really good. And the dun pea is also very big. And I actually let stuff go probably a little bit longer than I really should have, but I was away on business for 2 days. And the sunflower is probably perfect. The buckwheat could have been harvested already. The peas could have been harvested already, but they're going to be just fine. Now, about the sunflower. So, the seed holes on sunflower are always the biggest problem. Like I said, you can kind of just rub your hand over them and knock a lot of those off. But the other thing I like to do, if I have time, is actually pop a bunch of them off by hand. Most of these actually did come off. There's a lot of them just sitting on the top. But what I will do is take these off a few hours at least before harvested, because you'll get these little yellow spots on them, like right here. And after just a few hours of being under the light, that yellow will all turn green. So I'm going to finish cleaning up as many of these seed holes as I feel like is worth my time, and then we will rejoin when it's time to harvest.